We've seen a lot of new stretching tools lately, and I want to find out if the new Statistical Stretch 2.1 measures up to the Generalized Hyperbolic Stretch with a one-tool stretch approach. My name is Morten and you are watching Frosth Astrophotography. In the past, I've been using Statistical Stretch together with the Sketchpad iHDR just to be able to combine the basic stretch with the ability to bring out more contrast without overblowing highlighted areas. But then you would have to be using two different tools, and the result was hard to control. So I was forced to use Generalized Hyperbolic Stretch, as many others, but that is a very time-consuming tool. And now with the new Statistical Stretch 2.1, I want to find out, can you achieve the same result without spending way too much time in GHS? Join me in PixInsight and let's find out. Let's jump into PixInsight and check out the new Statistical Stretch 2.1. You can find it up under Script and SETI Astro Statistical Stretch. If it is not there, check out Resources, Updates, Manage Repositories, and make sure that you have the repository for SETI Astro. And if you do, you can manually make a check for updates, and then you restart PixInsight and it should load up for you. The first version of Statistical Stretch here in PixInsight left me to want more, and that's why I've been using the Sketchpad iHDR, as you might have seen in my earlier videos. This is just to bring out the highlighted areas more, or bring out more contrast in the image when stretching, while preserving the highlighted areas, making sure that they're not overblown. So in the past, I've had to use two scripts, Statistical Stretch and iHDR, to get the results that I wanted in comparison to Generalized Hyperbolic Stretch. And that takes a little bit of time, of course. It would be nice to do that in one single tool. I'm going to start with my latest project, the Elephant's Trunk Nebula. I'm going to open up the linear version of my HA. This is just a screen stretch right now, and I'm going to use the Statistical Stretch 2.1, stretch this, and then compare it to the one I stretched with Generalized Hyperbolic Stretch, and see if I can achieve the same results with less effort. Let's start with opening up the tool here, and we will see how it looks like. We are at version 2.1 now. At first, Frank over at SETI Astro said he wasn't going to do an update for the PixInsight script repository. And, well, I can understand him, that was fine. I was going to be using his SETI Astro Suite Pro, but I was very delighted to hear that he finally did an update for this, because I feel like him, the multi-adaptive stretch, it's not a tool that gets the job done in one single stretch. Looking at the interface here, we will start by selecting an image to stretch up here. I only have one image, at the moment, and it will refresh the first time you load the image here, or if you do a refresh of your preview. You have some basic sliders here for the target median and the black point sigma. If you want to attack this in a scientific way, you can use the Calculate Clipped Pixels option here. And for each setting of the black point sigma here, you know if you clip pixels or not. A value of 5 will probably or definitely keep the clipped pixels to a 0. But you might want to adjust this down to get a black point level to where you are comfortable. Clipping some pixels, even though it's probably just a very, very low percentage of your image. Before moving on, I'm also going to point out that I usually work with narrowband images like this. This is the H-alpha channel of a narrowband SHO image, and this is also a starless version, so I'm almost never stretching the nebulosity or galaxy together with the stars, especially when I'm working with narrowband. And these numbers that I will come up with for my type of images might not work the best for your images, especially if you have stars in them. So that's something to keep in mind. The target median here is going to be different for each type of object, depending on the contrast, how many highlighted areas you have. If you have black areas with no nebulosity, or if you have, like in this image, nebulosity in the complete frame, it will be a different story. So for this image, I'm going to drag it up quite high, I would say. It says 0.25 as a starting point for nebulosity, but I think we can go much higher here. Another very, very helpful little thing, or essential, I would say, is the K value here, the brightness of each pixels in the image. I use this every time I stretch. I use it in Generalized Hyperbolic Stretch just to keep track of the highlighted areas here, making sure that they are not overblown. So if I have my mouse pointer here over the little area above the top of the elephant trunk, you can see that the K value changes. And 1 is white and 0 is black. And you don't want this to get too close to 0. I usually want to keep it around 9. Worst cases, a little bit above 9. But when you start to get close to 1, this will be overblown and it will be a pain to mix the SHO image later on. Before we go into the middle section here, you have a couple of options. Linked stretch, it's not applicable for me because this is narrowband data. It's only the H-alpha. Normalize image range, this will normalize the stretch in between 0 and 1. I usually use that in the old statistical stretch. You can see that we add some brightness to the image here, normalizing it between total black darkness 0 and white 1. You can also use a curves boost, which I like because that will add contrast to your images. I use that in the old statistical stretch as well. Set that to 0.05 maybe. You can see that we add some contrast to the image here, making it much nicer. So let's dive into the new features. Now this image might not be the best one to test with because we don't have that many highlighted areas, but I can open up another image later just to demonstrate HDR a little bit better. But if we activate HDR compress, use the standard or default settings, you can see that we dim down some of the highlighted areas in the image here. Also dimming down these areas above the elephant's trunk here. Preserving them, I would say, not doing as aggressive of a stretch as we started with. Now this might look fine as a starting point, but if we were able to check the histogram of this image now, it will be somewhere in the middle, I would say, because we have a lot of darker areas that I really want to have darker, and this area should be a lot more darker. I want more contrast in this image as a whole, so that's why we're going to be adjusting down the black point sigma here. Let's see where we end up if we take it all the way down to 2.5-ish, I would say. We made it more darker here. I think I want it even more darker. Let's say around 195. That's a little bit more like it. Let's calculate the clipped pixels here and see how much we clipped of it. And we have a 0.7% clipped pixels. That might be fine because I'm cheating a little bit. I know what the histogram looks like in this case, and it's dropping off not very steeply, I would say, towards the black, and that is why we are clipping a little bit of the black side here, but that's okay, I would say. Well, now it's down to the fine tuning, I would say. I would adjust the target median here, changing the brightness, but you can also adjust the curves boost a little bit more. If you want to have a little bit more contrast, you can increase this. Let's see what it does if we put it up to 0.10. That might be a little bit too much maybe, so I'm going to take it down to 0.07. Maybe that's better, 0.08 maybe I will take it up to. And you can also, if you want here now, you can either lower the black point sigma even more, although we have clipped 0.98% now of the image. I would say that's fine for this type of histogram. But you might feel that this image is a little bit too bright now, so we will take this down to 0.035 maybe. Maybe I will lower the target median slightly more, something like that. And then I can increase this to 1.9 maybe. Now I feel happy with this as a first attempt on this image, so I will execute this stretch now. And I will close this, and I'm going to open up the Generalized Hyperbolic Stretch version that I did for this image, and we can compare the two. So we have the Generalized Hyperbolic Stretch version on the right. We have the Statistical Stretch 2.1 version on the left. Keep in mind that the GHS version took me a long time with several iterations of stretching back and forth, adjusting things and adjusting the black point several times, switching between linear mode and GHS mode. So the amount of work that goes into a GHS stretch is a lot more than Statistical Stretch 2.1, I would say. Let's go into an area here and compare the details a little bit better. You can see that there are some subtle differences here. You can see, in my opinion, as many details in the two images. We have a good K value here, no overblown areas. Maybe a little bit better controlled here than it is here, because we have a little bit higher value. But then again, I use the default values for the HDR section in the statistical stretch. I didn't manipulate them whatsoever because the image wasn't in the danger zone, so to speak. There were just a few minor areas with highlight. The same here and here, but it's nowhere near overblown. It's like at a 0.82 as a maximum, so I'm happy with that. There's a little bit more contrast here, but that could also be a little bit difference in histogram. Let's look at my GHS stretched histogram. It looks like that. And then we're switching to mine, which looks like that. You can see that the black point is fairly similar, although the histogram is a little bit different here, I would say. All in all, I would say that the Statistical Stretch 2.1 is very promising in terms of the result you can get in a one-stop stretch. After a bit of practice, and when you're taking down some numbers you use for different types of object, in comparison to the GHS and the amount of time it actually takes to do that stretch, and maybe the knowledge threshold needed to do it. So let's test this tool on a light frame with a lot of highlighted areas, like the Western Veil Nebula here, where you have a lot of highlighted areas that are tricky to stretch, I would say. So we're simply going to open up the SETI Astro Statistical Stretch once more for this one, and we will see how it performs. So you can see that here that we are closing in on overblowing this area right from the start, and we don't want to do that, of course, so we are going to increase this just to demonstrate. We're going to put normalization on and the curves boost on from the start, and now you can see here that we have areas that are very close to 1, maybe even above 1 in some cases, and we don't want that, of course, although you can see all of the nice details here. So what we will do here is that I will activate HDR compress, rerun my preview, and you can see right off the start here that the highlighted areas are compressed very, very nicely. If we hover over these areas now, we can see that we're not overblown. We are in the vicinity of 0.9 for some areas, but that works great, I would say. So if needed, you can boost the HDR amount here, and that will compress these areas even more, and then you can work with the other sliders here to get the stretch that you want for this image. Maybe you want to increase the brightness of the stretch overall. Maybe you want to move your black point a little bit down, or what. Let's see what happens if we move it down to 286 maybe. You can see that for 286 for this image, we're not clipping anything, so the black point could go down even more, maybe down to 214. This is still not clipping anything, or very little, even at this rate. So we're going to preview that, and you can see that now we have a fairly good image here, and the K value is up there for these regions, but it's not overblown. And this image actually took me a lot of time to stretch in GHS, making this a very good choice, I would say, for those times where you simply want to get through the linear phase and start to do the actual work with color calibration and making a nice SHO image, if you are using a narrowband like I do most of the time. Thank you so much for watching this video, and as always, if you like it, please give it a thumbs up and consider subscribing to this channel if you're not already doing so. Until the next video, I wish you have clear skies.